Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. Quick warning, hello, hey Lolico, Fiotic, and the real Domarino, thank you very much for joining me. Quick warning, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today, so please bear with me on that front, but I should be fine, I would say, or hopefully anyway. Welcome to the Ultimate Skyrim 4.0 beta stream. Oh my god, fuck me. My stomach is like insane right now. Hey Ferfante, how you doing? Hey Danny, thanks for joining me. Oh my god, I'm like sweating. Whew. Anyway, like I said, thank you guys for joining me. Today we are going to be going through, today and tomorrow really, we're going to be going through a little bit of Ultimate Skyrim 4.0 beta gameplay. President Athena, I have to go to work now. Great timing, BB. Leslie, oh I'm so sorry. Hey Totom, how you doing? Real Dumb Reno actually downloading Ultimate Skyrim now for the first time and watching all the first season, absolutely loving it. Can't wait to hop into it. Well, I hope you have a good time, my friend. So I figured that a lot of this stream would end up being a Q&A. I meant to go through and set up the MCMs already, but then I decided that it actually might make for some interesting streaming content, since I'm sure a lot of you have not gotten a chance to see some of the new mods. What the hell? With training and dedication, even a commoner can become a great warrior, major thief. Once learned, those skills will never be forgotten. This is what it means to be legendary. Meth321, so that's a modder. He's the guy who made crash fixes and bug fixes. I've never seen that loading screen before. Not once. Very interesting. Hey Tricky Dragon, how you doing? So basically, like I said, in this stream and the next one, we are going to be running through, I'm going to be playing the game, quote unquote, but really what we're on the lookout for is just weird shit that happens, basically. Little things, little polish points to add to the list. That list will be evaluated and run through after all of the features are plugged into the next beta, which should be the, if not totally feature complete, like 99% feature complete version of the 4.0 public release. That's beta 5 that I'm talking about. Drathmar, thank you for joining me. Welcome to Ultimate Skyrim. So if you guys did not see the development update from, what is it, 2 weeks ago, this will give you a chance to see the new startup process. So you're welcome to Ultimate Skyrim. Please wait while your mod's initialized. Thank you, Don Marino, for the follow. Please wait while your mod's initialized. When there are no more messages in the corner, it is safe to configure your MCMs, blah, 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 blah. So this is the new version of the start. I think that it is really, really solid. We have Gatto to thank and the rest of the team for this really solid integration. Let's see, Ferfante, have any quick tips to try and fix my crashing issue? Happens randomly around Whiterun and in the wild. My question for you there, Ferfante, would be: are you using 3.4 or the newest version of the 4.0 beta? Because there's like Whiterun from Riverwood to Whiterun, there's a very, very specific spot where you are crossing border thresholds. Beta 4. That is surprising to me. Really, if you're getting like semi-random crashing, the strongest indicator is typically your ENB local. Zod is plainly much better than I am at the specifics of configuring that. I know that he loves having people ask him how to configure their ENB local, but that's where I would look first, if it's at all random. Otherwise, that's pretty surprising, because we tried to get rid of that Whiterun crash. That's been the biggest mystery of development for a long time. It's kind of a mystery, but also kind of not, because we can trace it to this one specific spot where you cross over the border, quote-unquote, from Riverwood to Whiterun. And getting rid of the immersive Whiterun plugin seemed to have fixed that crash for the large majority of people. That doesn't necessarily mean that the immersive Whiterun plugin is to blame, but there's a lot going on in that area, probably more than anywhere else in the game, and it might just be kind of pushing the limits, so to speak, of Classic Edition. Totom says, first, thank you for your fabulous work on the mod. My question, when do you think the next version of Ultimate Skyrim will be released? I'm sorry I can't give you a definitive release date yet, Totom. I'm kind of trying to get my organization a little more regimented, we'll call it. But Beta 5, I'm trying to get out in less than a month. And from that point to the public release, there's a few things that are kind of outside development that need to happen. I need to create the new suite of installation videos based on the new installation process. We are overhauling the website, and a bit of the branding, so that stuff will take some time. Not really as much time as the development itself. So once the development goes gold, I will be sure to let you guys know. That will probably be shortly before that. We will release Beta 5 with the new automaton integration. At least that's currently the plan. And that will give the beta participants a chance to test all the new functionality, to test the gold version of the installation, to make sure there's no major problems, and then we can release it publicly. See, the real Dom Marino, what are your specs for running Ultimate Skyrim? I'm running on a PC with a GTX 1070 i7700K, 16 gigabytes of RAM. Wondering what you run on. My computer, this one right here, it has a 1080 and an i4790K and 32 gigs of RAM, I want to say, but obviously Skyrim doesn't utilize anywhere close to that 32. That's for video editing. Sergeant BCQ, hey Belmont, are you guys considering releasing the death mod for non-ultimate Skyrim use? I would very much like to do that, actually. There's quite a few things that are integrated in Ultimate Skyrim that aren't really dependent on Requiem. Some of them are too, and I would like to release those independently. What I would like to do somewhere down the line is take a look, and it would require the time to do it. Not that much time, but some. I would like to take many of the things that are in Ultimate Skyrim that have individual utility that are not dependent on the entire suite of mods and make those available as just little miscellaneous files for other users just to try and improve their own game. Just so you know, you don't have to use Ultimate Skyrim if there's some element of it that you like that's proprietary. For Fonte, it seems like it's random spots around Whiterun, like when I'm riding in on horseback after a hunt. Think not running an EMB would help. It's possible, but you would definitely want to run EN Boost at the very least, because the EMB files are actually really good for stability. They contain, we'll just call them a few memory tweaks that are actually much better at keeping the game stable. Fyodek, BB, any plan to do something with invisible entities to make them more visible? Maybe. I've thought about it in the past, but it's not something, I mean, for one, God, I very rarely get a character to a point where I'm even considering taking down invisible entities. I think if the installation was still very focused on permadeath, then I would definitely be adding in at least like that mod that gives invisible entities, you know, a slightly visible appearance. Because the new situation with the death mod is a little bit more forgiving, I'm not as gung-ho to do it for the invisible entities. Call it a maybe. I mean, I understand why people get frustrated by the fact that there's something attacking you that you can't really see. I also think it's a very unique enemy type for as bullshit as it can feel. I think in the context of a permadeath playthrough, it's pretty egregious, and maybe the fact that we still provide an option for permadeath means that the invisible entities should be tweaked a little bit to make them a little bit more fair. Draftmar, question, is it normal that if you do the smithing introductory quest with Adrienne and Whiterun, you can then use her stuff for free for the rest of the run? So, yes and no is the answer. The reason that you can do that is because of the tutorial dialogue option. So that is something we still need to go. It's not just her either. There's quite a few people in Whiterun, because that's typically the first city that players find. There's quite a few people in Whiterun who offer the same kind of functionality for their crafting implements. That includes, what is her name? In whatever the potion shop is in Whiterun. She does that. And I believe that Farengar Secret Fire up at Dragon's Reach might do the same thing for enchanting tables. So those dialogue options will be likely just eliminated completely so that you can't cheese it in that way. Oh my god. I think someone is blowing leaves outside. Hopefully you guys can't hear that. However, there is a mechanic built into crafting requires permission that allows you to gain either, if you are, I think if you're really, really good friends with someone, you can use their crafting station for free. If you are relatively good friends with someone, they'll give you a discounted rate. That is definitely in there. Let's see. And that mod needs a lot of tweaking. Anyone who's using the beta right now has likely discovered that there are several instances still in the game where you'll pay to use a crafting station, and you'll go to use it, and someone else will run up to you and say, hey, like, don't use that. And the reason that is because the mechanic through which Strad implemented the permissions for crafting works through faction listings or faction data. So, for example, it will look at, like, Adrienne Avenici has the smithing faction, right? And that's how it looks at her and says, okay, this is the person you need to pay in order to use the crafting station. However, vanilla Skyrim will give that smithing faction to sometimes several different people in, like, a little vicinity. So Ulfrith Warbear, for example, in Whiterun also has that faction. So if he's outside, sometimes even if he's inside from what I hear, and you try and use the crafting station, he'll come out and ask you to pay for it too, which is kind of funny. It's not supposed to be that way. So we have to go in there, either edit the factions so that only one person per crafting station has them, or find an alternate implementation. The Real Domarino says, will there be an all-in-one file download for Ultimate Skyrim? Not sure if it was just me, but I also feel like an all-in-one file with everything you need would be helpful. Would definitely take time. Well, it would definitely be helpful and really wouldn't take that much time, because if you have a complete installation, that's essentially your all-in-one file, barring, you know, certain things like patches and stuff. The problem is that that is something that is currently a big bugaboo with the Skyrim modding community. You frankly just, with the way that permissions are structured, you cannot just repackage someone else's work and distribute it yourself unless you have express permission to do that. There are many people, many modders whose mods are in the mod list who don't care about that kind of thing, but there are also many who do. And the reason that Ultimate Skyrim can exist where other mod packs have not is because Ultimate Skyrim, from the very beginning, we've made a point to, like, 100% respect modders' permissions. The whole thing would not exist if it weren't for the work of the modders, and that is something that I will always respect. And unfortunately, that limits the idea of an all-in-one, you know, download, but that's why we are doing everything we can outside of that and around that to make the installation as easy as possible. That includes the auto installer utility. It includes, you know, all the kind of automated stuff that my files do. But you never know what the future holds, I suppose. Let's see here. Arcadia is her name. Thank you, Danny, for that. Yeah, I run a mod list very similar to Ultimate Skyrim that I've been working on for a while. Thanks for the update. Keep up the good work, man. Thank you very much, my friend. Drathmar says, it's a bit weird. Was just checking if I should be consoling out 300 gold every day I use it, or if it was intended to kind of be the one free area to use it. It's really not. I mean, you can if you want. The beauty of course, this game and all the Bethesda games and modding is that whatever makes sense to you, you can do, but that is not by design. It's just kind of, I mean, you could argue that, like, I don't know, maybe she likes you and you guys are friends now, and you can use it that. Hey, Dima, how you doing? Ferfante says, reminds me, is there any way to make using a crafting station you don't have permission to use marked red like stealing? Not that I know of, because typically speaking, activators like crafting stations or ore veins and stuff like that, actually ore veins might be an exception, but they don't, I could be wrong about this, but I'm fairly certain this is correct. You can't really apply ownership to them in the same way you can an object. So it's not really stealing. The crafting requires permission situation, because if you could do that, that would be the easiest solution in the world to, you know, not, or preventing players from using certain crafting stations. But as it is right now, Stratavukos's mod is kind of the I don't know about the best way, because I've not sat there from scratch to, you know, try and come up with an implementation myself. But it is a way to prevent you from using crafting stations without having paid for it. And that's basically what we do, is we look for mods that approximate functionality that we're looking for, and if necessary, edit them. If not, just leave them as they are, or patch them. Danny, I feel like there should be a way to use the crafting stations without paying if the owner doesn't see it. Oh, there is. You can just do it. Typically speaking, actually, that's something maybe we can test while we're here. If the owner is not around, this I'm like 99% sure is true. If the owner's not around and you use their crafting station, it's, you know, you're typically not going to be accosted by them, as far as I know. But I don't know exactly what the range is on, like, them realizing that you're using their crafting station. that would be the part where I'd have to test it. Anyway, let's just dive right in here. So a few of these I'm not even going to bother with. Things like a matter of time, like clock widget. Oh my god. I am going to have to take a nap after this because I am not feeling fantastic. Auto unequip ammo. That MCM is still messed up. I wonder why. Is it going to let me do any other ones? Am I going to have to back out? I am going to have to back out. Whoops. So bathing in Skyrim. This has been a controversial choice. A lot of people say that they think that bathing in Skyrim is not something that they enjoy in the installation. I find it a lot of fun personally, but in case anyone is curious, this is definitely a lot of the more controversial mods, we'll call them controversial, and ones that change the game quite a lot. That includes crafting requires permission, or the kind of most of the Stratavucos mods will have an MCM option to disable them. So you will need to install them because they're still required for kind of how the installation is structured. But if you don't want to use it, you can just go right in here and click disabled, or you click enabled and it will be disabled. So if that's not to your taste, you have that option. Let's see here. I'm pretty sure I've used cooking spits in other people's homes and they demand I pay after I leave their home. It's possible, Danny. It does kind of beg the question as to how they know that you're cooking there. But it's something that would probably register very low on my kind of list of priorities at the moment. Let's see. I'm pronouncing that range. I mean, you bathe in real life. How is that not immersive? Do people not bathe? I think it's not so much the non-immersive part of it as much as just people don't enjoy it. So one person was saying that I think it was Drathmar actually, was saying that, yeah, there we go. My only problem with bathing in Skyrim is I still can't get the tubs and inns to work with it. It says you feel cleaner in the corner. When I use the check status from BIS, the dirty % doesn't change, and I don't get the clean buff. Okay, well, so keep in mind, I don't know exactly how this has been on yours, and we'll do it here just to kind of show you how it goes. Bathing in those small tubs is not enough to make you completely clean, but you will be not dirty, approximately. I believe that is the threshold it'll place you at. Otherwise, you need a larger body of water. All right, so let's see here. You want to get rid of this dialogue for NPCs. I don't even know why that's in there or what functionality it serves. Could you comment how the blueprints in the big crafting overhaul will work? I mean, when I find a blueprint, would it be possible to learn it by right-click, or it has to remain in my inventory in order to use it, same as Enderall? I would prefer learn it by right-clicking. Blueprint will be removed from inventory. That is exactly how it works, Feodic. So the blueprints are definitely not, you don't need to keep the blueprint on you in order to use it. Once you read it, it works a lot like spell tomes, in which you read it, you know the blueprint now, and then it's gone from your inventory. It would be such a pain in the ass if you had to carry around all the blueprints with you. That would just be super, super tedious, and if it was that tedious, I'd be like, fuck it, I wouldn't even implement the mechanic. Oh, excuse me. That goes double. I mean, not like a blueprint would weigh all that much anyway, but even more so than currently in Ultimate Skyrim, I have plans to reduce carry weight, and just kind of, I've been fucking around with carry weight mechanics already in the beta, but there's some additional stuff that I want to do. So, you know, if blueprints weighed anything at all and you wanted to craft stuff, you know, we're definitely, I'm personally very interested in really emphasizing player homes and permanent storage as part of the whole death overhaul too. Everything that I've been kind of putting into the betas is very much geared to encourage players to like quest for permanent storage, whether that means purchasing homes or building their own. And so like with that in mind, it would be a big old pain in the butt if you had to run and grab a bunch of blueprints every time you wanted to craft something. That would be very annoying. Let's see, range. Although I mod super special edition, Skyrim special edition at the moment, went ham on it for a week, only at a pleb 420 mods or so. That is a lot of mods, my friend. That is more than Ultimate Skyrim contains. Drathmar says, I'll test that next time. I've just been checking after, not before, and after, so it could be just lowering it to not dirty. I'll make a note to do that when we're here as well. So we'll do, because typically it'll start us off in the inn. Okay, so all this is fine. Player animations, that's all fine. Let's go College of Winterhold Immersive. That's not really going to be a problem. Campfire clothing fixes. That's fine too. Other options, protective clothing. Enabling this option will add a small armor value to worn clothing. This will not count as armor or interfere with mage perks. Applies only to player. So this is not a... I've not experimented with this, but that's actually here. Let me get my little notebook out. This is the kind of thing that we are here to find out. Now, I know how this functions in clothing and clutter fixes, and for the actual items themselves. Clothing and clutter fixes includes keywords on robes and other bits of armor that are supposed to denote that protective clothing. And I guess, I didn't know this MCM option was here actually, but I'm assuming that somehow just leaving this MCM option off will nullify the armor bonus of clothing containing those keywords. Or at the very least, putting it on will enable that bonus. Now, the real question is, because CCF is not specifically geared for Requiem, we'll have to test specifically whether or not the protective clothing options do not interfere with the mage perks. So I'm actually going to write that down. What do we got? I consider 200 mods or less not modded. I'm in a Discord that all the people have like 700 plus mods minimum. I need to retexture everything. I definitely get that. Let's see here. Make sure that CCF protective MCM option does not interfere with mage perks, because I think that it would be kind of nice to give the amount of armor that it gives to robes and stuff is very, very minimal, but it's something, you know. I think it's fairly reasonable. You know, you're in a robe, you're not going to block a sword strike or something, but it's going to offer you a little modicum of protection, and I think that's fun to approximate. So mage perks. Nice. What else we got? So the thing about retextures, in my opinion, is that sometimes it's worse to have, like, if you only retexture some things and you leave other textures just, you know, unretextured, the discrepancy between the stuff you see can be so jarring. You know, if you have like buildings and stuff are all retextured to have 4K resolution, beautiful textures, and then you'll have like a small rock right next to the building that is still standard, you know, 1K resolution, looks all fuzzy and shitty. That can be a real bummer. One more question regarding BCO. How the crafting interface will look like. Do I need to learn the blueprint before is the outcome, e.g. weapon, visible in crafting interface, or everything is visible from the start? We have to learn it first in order to craft it. So the way that will work is anything, if you don't know how to craft something, and that includes you don't have a blueprint for it, you don't have a recipe for it, it will not show up in your crafting interface. Everything that shows up in the crafting interface you can make if you get the prerequisite ingredients. So this, at least that's how it works right now. It creates kind of an interesting scenario whereby, because the thing about blueprints, right, is that what makes them a blueprint versus a recipe is that they also require one of the smithing perks. Blueprints are for smithing characters, whereas recipes are just for anyone to craft stuff. Anything that you'd reasonably be able to make with just your hands and, you know, a list of instructions, which is what a recipe is. So with a blueprint, there will, I've thought about this a lot, and I really don't know a better way to do it. There is a scenario whereby you can read a blueprint and learn that recipe, or learn the blueprint, but still not be able to craft it because you don't have the requisite crafting perk that it requires. And really the only way that I know of to combat that is to make it very obvious through the name of the blueprint and also the description that the blueprint requires a certain crafting perk. So you're gonna have to pay attention, and if you are getting a blueprint, you know, that requires the Elven Smithing perk and you don't have it, that's something you're just gonna have to kind of pay attention to as of right now, because I can't think of a better implementation. Danny says, have you thought about releasing a template save with your recommended MCM settings along with 4.0? The problem with that, Danny, is that I could conceivably do it for a full installation, but the template save, I don't know why I'm pronouncing it like that, really requires that, like, if, for example, you and I have one mod difference between us, that can cause a problem. So for me to create my own template save would require that whoever's using it has the exact same lineup of mods as I do. And that is obviously a little tricky when you have a large portion of the mods in the installation that are optional. But maybe it's conceivable to do with a full installation. We just have to try and see how it goes. Okay, so that's all fine. Composition is fine. Complete crafting overhaul. There's probably a couple options that we can change in here. Really, the only reason that I'm doing this is so that we can make sure we are working on a fully set up version. There's not a whole lot of point in testing if your MCM options are not what they will be in the full game. So here we go. Inventory conditions on crafting recipes. We can get rid of that. Recipe complexity should be, let's see. I prefer immersive myself. Fur and hide recipes are generic, actually, because that gives you one of the things that I like about complete crafting overhaul is the introduction of fur plates and hide lace, things like that. And you can break down so many different furs and pelts into many different kinds of things, including fur plates. And I like the idea that any, if you make it generic, that requires fur plates instead of like a wolf pelt, let's say. So, a certain armor that would normally require wolf pelts specifically will instead accept fur plates as an alternative. And that to me makes a lot more sense in terms of crafting gameplay, because you are generalizing the crafting ingredients for use in many different recipes. This means that if you go out and hunt a mammoth or something, all the fur that you're going to get will be useful for several different recipes, not just specific ones that require mammoth fur, if that makes sense. So we will set that up there. What else do we got? That's all fine. Breakdown equipment. The other thing is that a lot of the MCM options will be supplanted by stuff that I edit behind the scenes. So this is why it's almost like I still get questions frequently as to why certain plugins can be disabled in the context of the installation, and that's because the functionality is edited elsewhere. This I actually do like. Use the alternate XP formula. If you guys have not seen this, enables an alternate formula for calculating XP gained from crafting items at the forge. Does not affect the XP gained at other crafting stations, only the forge. This new formula rewards more experience points for items that have not been crafted before, and decreasing amounts of XP for additional time an item is crafted. So it kind of prevents you from just cheesing. It's to prevent you from just making the same item over and over again and, suddenly knowing how to make any number of things. That's kind of what I'm trying to fix overall with the big crafting overhaul. I've said this before, there's this very weird scenario whereby you will learn a new crafting perk and suddenly there's a million different things that you know how to craft. And it feels a little bit weird, like you were somehow just infused with knowledge that your character would not have. Let's see here. Drathmar, so no more crafting like 200 amulets of commerce and getting a crap ton of smithing. That is correct, Drathmar. So, I mean, you could do that. There will always be items that are a more efficient use of materials in exchange for money. So, something that has a certain value and requires certain materials that might be abundant or easy to get. So that's fun to me. I think it's fun to, try and, when you have a bunch of materials, figuring out what the most efficient use of those materials is, whether your goal is experience or money, that kind of stuff. That's the fun of crafting gameplay. So you want to keep that intact. But you don't want to make it possible to, the classic Skyrim situation is where your character has made 200,000 iron daggers and now suddenly can craft Daedric armor, which doesn't really, it's very cheesy and metagamey, and whenever possible, I like to, there will always be a certain level of metagame in any game, because games are fundamentally systems that have finite limits that are working together. However, whenever possible, I do like to mechanically limit metagaming opportunities rather than just requiring players to prevent themselves from doing it. That's generally my philosophy. I like that part. I did feel it levels smithing too quickly though, so I like that I can choose to make a bunch of material efficient items if I want money. I have to swap out which items to make to level smithing. That is exactly the intent. There you go, where it's like, what am I doing here? Am I trying to level up my smithing specifically, or am I trying to make money? There's a pro and a con to both. If you want to make money, you can make a million of the same thing over and over again, and if that thing is value efficient, it'll get you a lot of money, but you're not going to be getting nearly as much experience off of it. So it's a opportunity cost, and opportunity costs are fun. Resource balancing and such. What am I looking at here? That's fine. Blah, blah, blah. Mining materials, misc balance. This we can crank up to 50 because that is the Requiem default, and this actually will override that. Stallroom enchanting bonus, variable enchantment strength, variable tempering strength, that's all fine. Enable mods, here we go. We got bandoliers and bags and pouches, yes please. These will be, so this is something I see a lot too, is that, and we'll go into this in the next MCM option. There is, it's not even really a bug, it's just kind of a limitation of how things are structured in a couple of these mods. Oh, and Jace's Swords is in the installation, which is really wonderful. And also, for whatever it's worth, Immersive Weapons has unfortunately been cut. I was waiting for the next version of Immersive Weapons to get backported to Legendary Edition. There was still a strong chance it was going to get cut anyway, but I at least wanted to, you know, kind of give it a fair shake. But I think Hoth Trooper is very busy, and that unfortunately has not been released. So I made the decision to cut it, just because there's a ton of models that are very obviously like not, we'll just call them modded models. They are very obviously modded and not part of the vanilla game. What was I gonna? Oh yeah, bandoliers. So something that happens a lot, I find, is that people will go into the mod options and they'll set, you know, these are like the default enchantment values or whatever. These will be reset to the default enchantment values that are the default ones for the actual effect, and it's way too high. So like extra large enchantments will somehow end up like being like 50 or something like that. So players get a ton of carry weight when they're not intended to. What I'm probably going to do is go in and make those default enchantments much lower, so that you, if in fact it does revert, it'll at least revert to values that I've specifically curated, as opposed to just crazy ass values that totally unbalance the carry weight gameplay. I think you guys will find, and I know this might not be to everyone's taste, but it's one of those things where I would ask you to trust me on it, to see how it kind of impacts your gameplay. Carry weight will be vastly reduced, and you will be, just put it this way, if you go around hoovering up everything that you see, you will probably spend a lot of time in your inventory, and you will, I mean, frankly, just not be able to carry that much. You'll have to really prioritize things like followers and horses and permanent storage, but even then, you're going to have to get it from place to place. There's the mail system now, which is really cool, so you can ship your stuff, which is something we've added in specifically to accommodate this lack of carry weight. However, it just kind of, no matter what you do, you're going to be able to carry a lot less, so you will have to be a little bit more selective about the things you choose to pick up. I think, honestly, this will cut down on tedium for a lot of people once you kind of wrap your mind around that. And it should also prevent, there's other things that are being implemented to prevent massive amounts of gold and to give you more gold sinks. But I think that just, it's a simple tweak. Limiting how much a player can carry at one point in time is surprisingly effective, or unsurprisingly effective, at somewhat lessening the amount of gold you can make. Danny, so Guardian of the Dawn, are you using honed metal? Absolutely, my friend. I was wondering why a small pouch at my belt was giving me 50 carry weight no matter what I set it at in CCO. Yep, see, that is exactly what I'm talking about. Tricky Dragon says ship your pants. If you want, the really cool thing about Imperial Mail is gotta be one of the coolest mods I've seen in a long time. I think it's really well put together. I think the functionality is really rad. About the only thing that I don't like about Imperial Mail, and it is not even, it's like a totally subjective thing, is the art assets, like the signs and stuff. Even there, the mod allows you to like disable them from the MCM. I won't even require that. I'm going to be disabling them myself, kind of behind the scenes. But it's just such an excellently constructed mod, and it works so well with this carry weight emphasis that I'm talking about. I figure if you're going to restrict players' carry weight and stuff, it's not enough to just say you can't carry anything anymore and keep the game exactly the same, because the game is by default geared to allow you to carry a bunch of stuff. So if you're going to do that, if you're going to change such a fundamental element, you need to accommodate it. You need to give players, in my opinion, a variety of ways to deal with this problem of not being able to carry stuff now, right? So that means emphasizing permanent storage. It means allowing followers to carry things to an extent, and allowing you even to augment your followers' carry weight with stuff like bandoliers. Doing the same thing with horses. It means giving players a means of getting their stuff from one place to another that doesn't require some super tedious, boring thing. Thank you, Mizgo, for the follow. So, you know, if you have a bunch of stuff that you don't want to sell and you want to send it to your player home, but, you know, there's no fast travel, so you can't just, you don't want to walk it there all the way across the world. You can just, like, let's say you're questing in Iverstead or, like, around there, or you're, like, hunting and you're trying to get a bunch of crafting ingredients because you want to smith a bunch of stuff and gain your experience. You can just go to the inn with your big old bag of pelts, whatever you know, your days and days of hunting, because you're staying at the inn for like a week or so. You send it over to, I don't know, maybe your house is in Whiterun or something, and you want to stay hunting in Iverstead, so you ship it off, right? And you just go out, you hunt some more, you ship off more, and whenever you want, you can go back to, you know, Whiterun, and whenever you decide you've hunted enough, and just pay for all the stuff. It's like a really fun way of dealing with it, you know? Guardian of the Dawn says, awesome. Is that like the Black Horse Courier? I mean, in a sense, it's a shipping service. The Black Horse Courier was more of a specifically news-related thing, I would say. Hey, Danilo, thank you for joining us. Drathmar says, yeah, once that is fixed, I can definitely see using Imperial Mail. Right now, I don't use it because it's really easy to get a full set of pouches and a bandolier and have 470 carry weight very, very early. That is absolutely true, Drathmar, and it completely undermines just the whole thing. And this is one of the biggest reasons I wanted to do this. By the mid-game, first of all, mid-game balance in Requiem and in Ultimate Skyrim by extension is it's tough, because around the mid-game, I think most people would agree that the early game is the most fun, and the late game can be a lot of fun too, because that's when you finally get to engage in kind of the power fantasy element that, you know, is basically the whole game of vanilla Skyrim. But the mid-game has trouble because you're not quite strong enough to do the high-level content yet, but you are too strong for the low-level content to be fun or like super engaging. So it just kind of devolves into steamrolling a lot of stuff. One of the reasons why you're able to do that is because you probably have some decent stuff. Like, it's all about your loot, especially. So you've got like a buttload of really awesome potions and poisons, or you've got, you know, really good weapons or something. You can carry a lot of really useful stuff, and there's more to balancing the mid game than just this. But I think that just restricting how much stuff you can carry at any given time while you are adventuring and while you're fighting can have a positive impact on that mid game balance, just because you can't carry so much crazy overpowered stuff. And if you slip up, you can die and lose that stuff as well, thanks to the new death mechanics. So it's a little bit more balanced. There's still room to improve there as well, largely by just adding in, I think, engaging mid-game content, which will be a focus of updates after 4.0. But I think that these changes help, most definitely. Mac Mora says, races will still have different carry weight based on the race perceived strength. Yes, that is how that will be, Mac Mora. Tricky Dragon says, I had to nerf the carry weight edition in Super Special Edition. Edit for the pouches, Q&D stuff on Special Edition. Oh, and stuff on Special Edition. I think that all the versions, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if all the versions kind of suffered from that same bug, so to speak. What are we doing here? This is all fine. Crafting location, tanning rack. That's not where you craft it. You can craft it yourself with your hands. Complete crafting. Wow, what is it? 10:40, and we're in the MCMs. Also, this is disgusting. I've just been sitting here. I told you guys I've been feeling sick today. I've just been like farting so much in this room. If you were here, I'm the only one who can sit here, because otherwise everyone would just die. Fyodik, do we know how far is Ogre Boss with tweaking the arrow resistance? Hopefully we shall see it before release. I don't know personally. I like to leave the Requiem team alone as best as I can, because I know how stacked they all are. and I feel it's tricky. I understand that there's a lot of players who are not a fan of the new arrow system. I really don't have that much experience with it myself because, like many modders, I don't get to play the game a whole lot. I spend most of my time modding it. And I understand that from the player perspective, it can be a very frustrating thing, and that maybe, I mean, the team themselves have admitted that they kind of, you know, the balance is not exactly where they'd like it, and perhaps they should have tested certain elements before releasing it. However, I feel when players offer their respectful feedback, I say do that to the cows come home. You know, like go ahead, because that's what modders would love to see, or at the very least, it's useful. You know, it makes me so sad when I see people get real upset, or dare I say it, like entitled about it, because you have all of these people who have lives and responsibilities and jobs and school and a million things, and they're taking their free time out to craft these wonderful experiences for us. I find that it just helps to keep that in mind, because there's been some people who are upset about the mechanics where I feel like it broaches unreasonable territory. Hot take anyway. Severay says, wait, what's the new arrow system? Basically, the new arrow system is something I think is really cool. The whole like armor resistance to arrows was overhauled to approximate the protection that each specific type of armor piece would give you. Specifically, it was designed to prevent kind of awkward armor rating cheesing, where like in 1.94, you could be wearing like a helmet and bracers and boots and be totally naked in your chest, which is the vast majority of surface area on your body, and still be really well protected from arrows, because really the primary consideration for arrow resistance was your armor rating, and your bracers and your helmet and your boots are all contributing significantly to your armor rating. So if you had a really good armor in those three locations, but like I said, you were wearing no chest piece at all, arrows would still do practically nothing. In this new system, each type of armor piece, so that's, helmet, cuirass, however you pronounce it, boots, and bracers, they still give you general armor rating, but arrow resistance will take into consideration what type of armor piece it is, so that, like cuirasses count way more towards your armor resistance, whereas your bracers or your boots will be less significant. They're all tiered out by keyword. It's pretty cool behind the scenes. However, I think that the numerical balance of how much each piece counts for, and then also specifically the inclusion of this kind of random element designed to anticipate designed to simulate rather when an arrow kind of like finds the sweet spot between someone's armor. They added in that random chance for an arrow to still really, punch through an armor piece, and many players have found that unreasonably geared, or it's kind of unfair for the player character taking hits from arrows. The development team said that they kind of lean that direction for archer characters to make them feel a little bit more powerful when facing armored NPCs. And the problem was that it left heavy armor characters feeling especially weak against archer NPCs who kind of have pretty good aim a lot of the time. And it was kind of shitty because heavy armor, in the rock paper scissors design philosophy of Requiem, like one of the major reasons to wear heavy armor is because of the arrow protection. And really, if you don't have that, light armor and even unarmored, especially in the case of mages, is almost objectively better in every other way. So I think a lot of heavy armor characters, a lot of heavy armor players were feeling kind of shafted by these new changes. The Real Don Marino says, hey BB, I'm trying to follow your Ultimate Skyrim tutorial. Do you know why I cannot use the Nexus mod download feature with Mod Organizer? I keep on trying to log in, and I know my password, but it still says login failed. I know exactly why that's happening, Don Marino. I'm really sorry about that. For some reason, well, I know why it happens. The version of Mod Organizer that's linked by the video is old, and it has it's not been updated for the new domain name of Nexus, since they did like the big interface overhaul. So it has problem with like the host file. It can't log in. there is a new version of Mod Organizer 1 that is confusingly hosted on the Mod Organizer 2 page. I think it's called like Mod Organizer 1 Legacy Edition or something like that. What you're going to want to do is go onto the Mod Organizer 2 page. I think it's a special edition page, and you'll find Mod Organizer 1 in like the miscellaneous files or something like that. That one should work just fine for you. Severay says, sounds like a nice improvement as far as using the arrow resistance in a more immersive system. The random sweet spot stuff sounds like it might need tweaks, but still cool overall. That is exactly how I feel about it, and I think that there are other people who feel like that too. I just think that, you know, the random... I don't even necessarily dislike like the random element of it if it's controlled. I know a lot of players disagree on that and think that there should be no random element at all, and it's hard for me to argue with them because I don't have the playtesting experience either. But at the very least, I do think that the overall structure of the new system is pretty cool. It's something I like a lot. Okay, thanks. I saw you just logged in and was like, oh wow, okay. Yes, because I have the super secret special Mod Organizer edition. I paid the Nexus administrators under the table, and then they said, here you go. That's not true. That's a lie. That's a joke. All right, what else are we doing here? Complete crafting, college or winterhold requirements, customizable camera, that's all fine. Dual wield parrying, I think I have middle mouse. Dungeon darkness. For those of you who don't have the beta yet, let's take a look at this really fast because it's the coolest fucking shit ever. This is another area that I'm happy. I love when mods have MCMs and they allow you to disable their functionality. Even when I assume that no one will want to disable the functionality, sometimes that's not the case. This is an example of a mod that I think is just... even if you leave it on the default settings, it makes dungeons like way darker. That's something I'm hugely fond of. Many of you who watched Season 1 know how much I enjoy managing light as an additional resource that you have to worry about. I think that it's a lot more immersive to be exploring dungeons that are realistically dark, and I think it's fun to give the player several different options as to how to deal with that darkness, whether it's light sources, you know, torches, travel lanterns, whether it's fire spells or light spells, or even like vampirism or night eye. I think it's a really fun thing to do. And so this mod, it does a fantastic job of actually dynamically adjusting light sources so that most of the time, you know, like by default, you'll be in a dungeon and all the light sources will be out. But then what'll happen is the mod will look at the dungeon cell. It'll identify where there are NPCs or actors of certain types, like bandits and such, right? And it will sometimes, based on like a random chance, light and unlight, you know, light sources around them to simulate how a human would probably do that if they were trying to explore, you know, a place. But other areas will be completely dark. It's just really, really cool. And the side effect of having all of these light sources be dynamically adjusted is that you can also do that. So if you're, you know, if you have a torch or something and you're going through a dungeon and you find like a brazier, you can actually light it yourself now so that you don't have to have your torch out all the time. It's just really, really cool. And the original point I'm making is that I found that there are some users who are dealing with monitors that are like low quality monitors, or they're old, and even when their brightness is all the way cranked up, it's just super, super dark still, to the point where using a mod like this is just not fun. It very much broaches not fun territory. Some players also just don't even like dealing with that at all. Some players just would rather have their dungeons lit because that whole light-based resource gameplay is not something they find enjoyable. And if that is you, you can go in here and you can completely disable the mod outright if you like, or you can go in here with the presets and you can set it to milk drinker right here, and that will make the whole place very well lit, or you can make it even darker than it normally would be. You have a lot of freedom in terms of how you configure it, and it saves me the trouble of having to make optional patches for like different settings and stuff with the plugins themselves, which saves me the development trouble, and it also saves us plugin slots, which are obviously a scarce resource. Severay says, I wonder if they could tie/increase the sweet spot chance to the quality of arrows and bolts. Iron arrow practically 0 chance against heavy armor and slowly scaling from there. I believe that is how it works, but don't quote me on that. I believe that the random chance does take into consideration the quality of both the armor and the ammo types. I'm not 100% sure on that, though. It just very much seems to me like the sort of thing that the Requiem team would consider in their, just because of their skill pedigree. Drathmar says, I love Dungeon Darkness, though I find that there are some issues with using the fade out on dungeon entry. That's unfortunate, Drathmar. What sort of issues are you talking about? I've not experienced that many with them. Sorry, I'm talking so much about Requiem. Super excited for US too. Dude, don't even worry about it. I'll talk to you about Requiem for years and years. And if you really, I mean, don't get me wrong, Ultimate Skyrim is great, but the soul of Ultimate Skyrim is Requiem. You know, it's the baseline from which everything else is built around. Ultimate Skyrim, I think, in its most core form is just a Requiem mod list, you know, not to discount all the other changes that it brings to the table, but it's all built around Requiem and designed to enhance that Requiem experience. Errant Knight says, I used to drop my torch when fighting so I could see enemies in US. So you can still do that if you like. That's still very much an option because we still use simple drop torches. That's something I really like about that mod, is that you can just kind of throw down your torch and use it as like a little momentary light source if you don't have like a travel lantern or something. And I like that the new activatable braziers and stuff just kind of add even an extra degree of strategy or utility. So maybe instead of throwing down your torch, you see a Draugr coming at you, you see that there's a brazier to your left, you just light that really quick, and now you got even better light source, and you don't have to throw your torch on the ground, because I would do that sometimes and then totally forget about it, and then oops, I don't have a torch anymore. Let's see here. Danila Pitt, especially it's true for video makers / streamers, tweaking darkness. It's very true. God, I can't tell you guys how many comments. I still get them all the time from Season 1, just complaining about how dark the dungeons are. And I watch the videos, and they are exceptionally dark, far darker than they were for me when I was playing the game, even though, I mean, they're very dark, but YouTube compression, I think, really does not do well with that kind of stuff, so it's worth adjusting that. I mean, and it prevents people who are making videos from having to adjust the brightness after the fact in, you know, post while editing. Drathmar says, I've had it turn out my candlelight spell if I have the fade out on dungeon entry on, but if I let it do it without the fade out, it works fine. That's interesting. That's really funny. I wouldn't think that it would affect the candlelight spell at all, but you never know with this stuff. Dom Marino says, okay, just downloaded the new mod organizer legacy edition thing. He said, but now all the DLC ESM like Hearthfire's Dragonborn is gone. There's only one ESM, it's just called Skyrim. That is probably because if it is a separate installation that you just installed in mod organizer, your I'm assuming these are after the cleaning process, your other ESMs are probably located in your overwrite folder from the first installation, so you'd have to grab them from your overwrite and put them in the new overwrite. Really, I would check with either the Discord or the subreddit, and they'd be able to help you with that. Dom Marino. Feodic says, for release version, will you keep vanilla races and standing stones stats? As of right now, I don't have any plans to change the races and standing stones from the vanilla Requiem 2.0 stuff. I think that if those... Actually, okay. There's a maybe about that, because there is a modder, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's the one who does the standing stones rebalance. He has an alchemy rebalance, like a werewolf and a vampire rebalance that I think are really solid. If I were to change up anything about that stuff before 4.0 releases, those mods would probably be what I'm looking at. I can't promise anything because there's still a bunch of stuff that would need to happen here. But I really like a lot of the changes that AZ Tweaks brings to the table. It's something I've evaluated in the past. I've been told by AZ to kind of hold off on any sort of integration because he's got some stuff that he's working on too, and he wants to make sure it would be like a proper integration, which I get. But maybe one day. I think they're kind of fine as it is right now, but, you know, I'm always looking at balance. I'm always looking at improvements. Sir Darius says, am I late or is he just starting? I have been streaming for 55 minutes now. Oh my god, my stomach is going crazy. I'm not quite at that point yet, but I might have to pause it soon and go and release the Kraken. Let's see what we got here. Severe, now we need some way to throw torches at enemies to start off the fight. That would be pretty cool, I admit. I don't think it would do a whole lot in terms of like setting people on fire, if we're speaking realistically, but it would be funny at the very least. Sir Darius says, can you add the option to watch in 720p? My internet is bad. I can't watch on 1080. Can you not? Oh, SNBCJ. That is it, Fiotic. Thank you for... That's the modder who makes all of those tweaks. Can you guys not watch in 720p if it's uploaded in 1080p? That would be strange, it seems. You can't go into like the little cog menu and like go down one? I don't really know how Twitch works. I'm still pretty new at that, so I suppose it's possible. It just seems strange to me. Anyway, still going through dynamic or the MCMs. ESF Companion, there's only one quality option. Odd. Sorry, not related, but are you going to continue Kingdom Come Deliverance? That is a big maybe, Errant Knight. I kind of have the freedom to do that now that I've been streaming. I'd just be, if I do it, it'll be during a stream, and then I'll upload the VOD after the fact. Okay, we got ETAC. This we do need to go into. Patches, use 3D chain mesh. That's really all we got to do there. Finis should be fine. Garrick says, my internet doesn't like downloading all these mods plus this stream at the same time. That I do believe. That makes sense to me. Follower potions, footprints, frostfall. This should all be fine. Hearthcraft, holidays, honed metal. I don't really think there's anything we need to change too intensely here. I would probably need to change these up to my settings from before, but I don't really plan on crafting that much during this anyway, so that can come later. Hone Metal Hunterborn. We got to activate it, I believe. Features. Start Hunterborn. Yes, please. Let's get out over here. Some people have said to me that they thought it was a bug that the Scrimshaw ability is not actually on your character even after you activate Hunterborn. That is not a bug, just so you guys are aware. That is by design, because the Scrimshaw ability has been supplanted by the player crafting ability that is always available to every character. So any recipe that would normally be in the Scrimshaw crafting menu can be found there, typically with the same conditions. The only thing that's been changed is the quote-unquote workbench, which is the entry for each recipe that determines where it is crafted at. And that is another big part of the crafting overhaul, is unifying the functions of each crafting station so that you don't have to constantly jump between them all the time. So how's this automated installer working? Does it just set up all the MCM menus? It does not set up the MCM menus, Errant Knight. It automates the actual installation of the mods themselves. So that means faux mod installers, Bane installers, the mod order, and the load order, which, my God, has that been a source of problems for users. Most of the troubleshooting that we do on the subreddit and the Discord has to do with people having either an improper mod order or an improper load order. So I am very thankful for the chance to automate that stuff. Really, if you have detailed questions, you'd have to ask Methrol, because he's the project lead on that installer. Unfortunately, he is on vacation right now, but I'm sure that he would be happy to get back to you as soon as he has an opportunity to do so. Let's see, Immersive Armories, Immersive AFT. This one, why don't we go in here, carry weight, I'm going to go down to 100 pounds. Really, none of this stuff matters that much. I should really just be looking through for anything super crucial. Severe, as a modding novice, thank you for the automated installer endeavor. I'm very happy to provide that, Severe, and really it's Methrol. It's his project and has been from the very beginning, and I'm also thankful for it. The really cool thing, and this is Automaton we're talking about for those of you who don't know. From the very beginning as well, Methrol has intended this installer as a framework. So it's not like Ultimate Skyrim will be utilizing it, but it's not just for Ultimate Skyrim. It's pretty much designed for anyone who wants to make their own mod pack or similar thing to be able to utilize it in the same way. It's going to be open source. So if any of you guys have, you know, kind of similar aspirations and want to share your own mod packs and mod lists, it should be a very useful tool for you to do that. Domarino, well, I think I just did the most bougie way of what I did. But I took all the files from the formatted and clean version of Mod Organizer and copied all the files from that except the exe and copied them over to the one. Let me go into Nexus, and now all you have are your clean DLC ESM. I mean, that's really all you'd have to do, Don Marino. I think that's fine. Never thought that would work. We have a lot of people, too, who encountered the same problem on the first version of Mod Organizer and who opt for Mod Organizer 2 instead, which you really can't do at this point because there's still problems with Mod Organizer 2 and certain patchers on the 32-bit executable, which is what we're using here. So you have to be careful with that. You shouldn't be doing that. And even then, you can transfer a lot of your work from Mod Organizer 2 back over to Mod Organizer 1 because they have fairly similar file structures and installation structures. This is all fine. Is there anything really crucial that I got to do here? MCM loot and degradation. This actually there is. Oh, damn it. I need. If you ever go into the I need MCM, you will have to exit out before you can do any other ones. I always wondered why that was. I don't know. Hey, Kalali, thanks for joining us. Inns and taverns. Configuration. Let's go enhanced mode, and the rest of this is fine for now. Those might be more expensive as well, but we'll see. Loot and degradation. General. Enchanted equipment chance. 0. Less level loot. NPC's loot. Bump that up. So the NPC's loot feature is, excuse me, interesting to me. I like it conceptually. I like the idea of NPCs taking valuable stuff off of the things that they kill, because otherwise you have, like, anyone who's ever stumbled upon one of the Immersive Patrol's Civil War battles, right, knows that you can go and there's so much stuff for you to carry and just get for free. There should be, I mean, one, the carry weight improvements will adjust that a little bit because you won't be able to carry that much. But also, I am going to try and adjust Stratavukos's mod so that that will count as looting faction NPCs. So at the very least, the like, let's say the Stormcloaks win the battle, they will not be super happy if you try and start looting their dead friends. But at the very least, I'm trying to find a nice balance for NPCs loot that allows NPCs to still loot stuff, but not leave a bunch of naked dead bodies everywhere. So we'll see. At the very least, we can probably gear it so that they don't take the armor and shit. And so if you want to take that and break it down, you still can. But anything, you know, valuable like potions or gold or anything like that, they will probably take. So at the very least, you won't end up with so much stuff that you didn't, quote unquote, earn yourself. Get rid of this tempering service. We can add equipment repair kits. Player degradation rate can be, I don't know, what, 3-ish. Also, the official MCM settings for this will likely be no more item breaking, just because I think it's fairly unrealistic, but I still would like the degradation to happen. So this is probably about where we'll keep it for now. Text notifications can go all, because I also, as part of 4.0, I don't know if it's going to fit into the actual final release. If it doesn't, it'll be in updates after the fact. But I'm planning a fairly large-scale kind of UI and hotkeys overhaul just to make the interface design a little bit more sensical and less... what's the word? I'm trying to reduce the amount of eye tracking that you have to do, or like eye movement, because I feel like it's a lot. There's a bunch of kind of useless stuff all around the periphery of the screen. I think the loot and degradation widgets are a good example of that. Let's see what we got. Macmora, hey BB, is there a way to lengthen the time that enemies will search for you when sneaking? The time always seems so short to me. That's surprising to me, Macmora, because Requiem specifically makes that much longer, and I feel like it's pretty long. But there could be something editing that. It's been a while since I have checked that personally. Feodic says, have you thought about adding extended encounters available on archive.org? I think there are many players who would be happy to have it in the installation. Yes, I have, Feodic. That is actually... so I used to have extended encounters in the installation in like version 1.0. And as many of you know, the author, John Oxor, or however you pronounce it, he's also the author of Worm's Tooth, kind of went dark for a while in order to focus on his real life kind of stuff. And he found at the time that even just having his Nexus pages kind of was too much of a distraction for him to mess with. So he took a lot of that down. And it was really unfortunate that he took it down, because the fact that he took it down meant that I couldn't include it in the installation anymore. Because obviously, you know, if players can't get it, then I can't include it. However, that has since changed, and he has uploaded both the newest version of Worm's Tooth and also the newest version of Extended Encounters to his own archive on archive.org. So I'm very strongly considering putting that back in the installation. It's definitely not something that will make it into 4.0, but it is on my short list, so to speak, which is really, that list is not very short anymore. Severe says, maybe different factions will have variable respect for the dead. I don't know. I can imagine bandits taking everything, but a guard or Thalmor patrol maybe taking just a better class weapon. That might be an ideal implementation, Severe. It would be tough because as it stands right now, the only threshold, the only criteria built into the framework is the amount of value, for an item that determines whether or not an NPC loots it. But there's anything is possible. It's just a question of how would you implement it, how much time would that take, and what value does that add to the installation, and are there other projects that require attention first because they add additional value. I try to evaluate now, thanks to the advice of my fiance, who's a professional project management person. I've tried to organize development according to the highest priority stuff is the stuff that adds the most value to the experience. From that point, it's evaluated based on how long something takes to implement. So it's kind of like we'll call it a maybe, that functionality. Garrick Levry says that could scale on weight/value. It could. This is a situation where I don't know exactly how it's structured behind the scenes. It should be fairly easy to tell. In fact, here, why don't I write it down, guys? I'll say, see if NPC looting can be determined by criteria other than just value. Because like I said, anything is possible for the most part with enough time. That's the beauty of modding, really. Missives. That's really fine. These default MCM settings, more HUD, not so fast main quest, pumping iron. That's a fun one. Pumping iron. There's not that many Gopher mods in here still. I would really like to get Predator Vision back in here at some point. But we'll see. See, RDO, all friendly dialogue. There's a lot of options here that we really don't need to mess with. Religion, Requiem, SFM, followers, simple drop lit torches. Main torch hotkey, let's make it T. Really, the hotkeys are fine as well. I mean, this is not like a permanent playthrough, so it's not super important. Simple taxes, simply knock. Sky UI at the very least, so we don't get yelled at when we go into our map menu. Let's take this one. There, controls, advanced, and there we go. SWF version checking. Was Predator Vision Gopher's Night Eye revamp mod? Yes, it is, Severe. Very cool mod. That mod, I really like it a lot. It has historically been incompatible with Vampiric Thirst, and that was why it was not in the installation. But now that Vampiric Thirst is no longer in the installation, we can reevaluate compatibility. That was something that that was one of my earliest projects with Ultimate Skyrim, was trying really, really hard to get Predator Vision working with Vampiric Thirst, but it was not to be, unfortunately. That was actually, there's very few really hard incompatibilities, like just a hard incompatibility, meaning that it just cannot be done, and any way of doing it would be so unreasonably complicated so as to make the process just untenable. But that was one of them, and it was just kind of random and unfortunate. The reason was because Vampiric Thirst, the way that it was structured, it uses actually the Vampire Sight ability as a hook for like all of its mechanics. So it took like the pre-existing ability and replaced actual Vampire Sight with its own proprietary version of Vampire Sight, and then used the original Vampire Sight ability, like I said, to manage all the different stuff that it did. And it was like a very interesting implementation, but because of that, it made it nigh impossible to use with Predator Vision and other Night Eye mods. Loleko says Ultimate Skyrim is on SSE too. It is unfortunately not at this time. I don't know, I would like to. There's things about Special Edition that I really like that I would like to take advantage of. But whether or not we can move to Special Edition depends on a few different factors. The primary kind of block is having an official Requiem port to Special Edition, which is something that the developers have said they are looking into, but they are not 100% sure on. There's also the simple fact that a lot of the mods that are in Ultimate Skyrim are still not available on Special Edition, so there's a few different things that would need to be kind of evaluated there for us to make an actual attempt. Sleep Tight, Smartcast, Spell Research. Also Smartcast will likely be, or at least some parts of Smartcast will be probably blocked, just because you can really cheese it if you know how to use Smartcast. You can, your mage character can be even more overpowered than mage characters are by default. See, Spell Research. I mean, look at this one. Excuse me. Let's see here. Spell Research Experience. This is all fine. Really, this shouldn't. We can import spells. Sure. Let's let it run. I wonder, I haven't tried doing this yet while on this page, the Skyrim Unbound. That'll be fun to do too. I mean, I've been sitting here for what, an hour and 15, and we still haven't technically started the game. But taking a deeper look at the new starting options, I think will be a lot of fun. Yes, please. Spell Research is, in my opinion, full of problems. OP to get gold, and crafting new spells is just too complicated. So, I don't know if you played with the latest version, Garrick. Spell Research has since been updated. The gold problems, so to speak, have been addressed to where at least the value of a lot of its ingredients and artifacts and stuff has been vastly reduced. They've also been kind of, the utility of all those different items has been expanded a little bit so that they're useful for things other than just making new spells. So it's kind of interesting. I really haven't played that much with it myself, but it's really just there as an alternative way of learning spells if you want, and if you don't find it enjoyable, you can just kind of not use it, because it can be a little complicated. I think some people who use it extensively really seem to enjoy it. And I like the idea of like the archetypes and stuff. Mod configuration all the way back down, and let's jump into, see, spell sword, take notes. We gotta go in here just to adjust the hotkey, otherwise every time I try and open up my compass and other things, it will get mad at me. Home, that'll be fine. The Real Don Marino, I'm downloading all mods listed on your page, and I hear you say the next beta with you adding things. How will I update my game? Sorry, this sounds newbie. The beta includes instructions in and of itself. They are much less hand-holdy. So really, the beta is kind of restricted, and it's this. I say this in like a big disclaimer on my Patreon page, that anyone who's opting into the beta should understand that the instructions are a little bit less user-friendly. You are kind of required to have at least rudimentary or to like intermediate modding experience if you want to have like a semi-decent time. There are instructions, everything that you would need to get it running if you are like an intermediate modder, but that is kind of the cutoff. Like, you'll have your master list, you'll have your sorting files. It's just a question of being able to read what's been added, what's been removed, and then organizing it yourself according to everything that's listed there. Macmora says, I need to use Spell Research more. I have a lot of extra time when it's daylight. Vampire playthrough. Yeah, I mean, that's actually a good point. Although, really, if you want to pass that time in other ways, you can do that through training dummies or by skill studying. That's another good way to do it. Also, coincidentally, Iron Dusk Mods, and he's the author of Spell Research as well, if I remember correctly. Severe says, I've seen Balian use it a few times in his streams. Seems to work pretty well. At worst, it's a bit tedious for someone used to having more streamlined magic. So it's pretty true, Severe. It's just, I think like with a lot of things, it takes just a slight adjustment to your mindset. I think that, I mean, this is something that this is more analogically than anything else. I think that a lot of players, like when they first jump into Requiem, right, like initially they'll have a lot of concerns and complaints, like, why is my stamina draining so much, or like it's always out, and I'm, when I'm using heavy armor and yada yada. It just kind of requires you, like many things, to unlearn maybe some stuff that you've learned before in a certain way, and just be open to the possibility of doing things in a different way. I don't know. Oh, I'm out of water. I might have to go and refill that in a moment. Garrick says, I remember having a big problem to get a higher level revive. It felt very inconsistent and much simpler to craft books to sell and just buy the higher level tome. So that's another thing, is that we are making edits to spell research to where tome crafting for the purpose of, because it's a good way to make money. That's actually something that you won't be able to do until I think we decided that level 50 in like some skill of magic. So you have to hit level 50 in at least one spell school in order to craft spell tomes, and also in order to gain access to the college now. So just so you know, that's how that will be structured most likely in 4.0 or after 4.0, but probably in it. At the very least, the College of Winterhold requirements will reflect that. Trade and barter, trade routes. Is trade and barter activated by default? No, it's not. That's what I thought. Okay, so that's good. Actually, let's go into trade routes, regional supplies. That's all fine. That's fine. Item and lands mods. That's all good. Buy trade routes, wearable lanterns. What is that? L. Yeah, okay, that's still good. And wet and cold. This one, there's a couple things. Let's see here. I think there are some indoor training dummies, but the only ones I can think of right now are for Dawn Guard. You can also craft your own if you are in the beta at the very least. That is functionality that exists. Excuse me, Zerby says, BB, I just passed my driving test. Congratulations, man. Welcome to the roads. They can't deny service to the Thane of Whiterun. They can try. Let's see here. Mode, NPCs, blah, blah, blah. Get rid of this rain blind. Good on that. Exit, drip, soggy feet. That's all good. Workers ignore rain. These can go into leveled list. That is fine. Cold, first, third person, blizzard blind disabled, snowy, strong winds, blah, blah, blah. So we don't want... Let's see. This can go on a leveled list, and this one. And gloves and face covers. But what we don't want to include is backpacks and water skins. Well, the water skins are fine, really. Goggles. Thank you for Fonte for the subscribe. See, goggles, face covers, followers, leveled list here and there, and no watery eyes. Thank you very much. Well, Twitch Prime is something I'm also still unfamiliar with, but I really appreciate it. I know it's something money related. Kulali says, why no backpacks and leveled lists? That is because those backpacks are... There are backpacks and leveled lists, just not the ones from Wet and Cold. Those are two different types of backpacks. We include the ones from Bandolier. And that way you're not getting two different types of backpacks that have vastly different carry weight. Although it would be possible to go in and just, edit those ones too. Because they do look pretty cool. It's a balance thing, really. Rain splashes, light, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that is just fine. And we don't really need to do anything here either. That's okay. Alright, so that's pretty much it for our MCMs, at least for now. Anything I can think of off the top of my head. For the random spawns in 4.0, do you add a backstory for why you spawn in? Or it's just random? Well, so we're about to take a look at that, Zerpy. Okay, actually, I'm going to have to do this right now. I have to pause this stream for like 2 seconds, and I'll be back because otherwise I think my stomach is literally going to explode. So you guys can time me if you want, but I'll be back in a quick moment, and then we will take a look at the new starting mechanics. How does that sound? Okay, thank you guys for bearing with me. Apologies for the interruption. I was out late, well, semi-late last night, late for a Sunday with some friends, and let's just say that drinking is not good for you. Anyway, last we left off, we were about to take a look at the new start mechanics, which is something I'm very excited about personally. So this is what has replaced Live Another Life. Live Another Life, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that we felt that this was a cleaner way to start the whole experience off. And for those of you who don't know, this is Skyrim Unbound, which is a really wonderful mod. It's another alternate start mod. It comes with a ton of different options for you to start your game and just kind of customize the roleplay of your experience. It also has completely open permissions, which has allowed us to integrate directly our own kind of slightly edited version of it. Zerpy says, I want to make a mod where you give a purpose to the old Oryx's life, and he becomes your companion so he can die an honorable death. That would be a pretty cool mod, Zerpy. I like the idea very much. Anyway, so you have a bunch of options here for all different kinds of stuff, and we'll go through them. Adventure is fine. This is your character name. And from your preset, you can select one of these classes, kind of, you know, classic Elder Scrolls or classic just RPG style. And if you select one of these, and we'll just do, for example, Assassin, these presets will just edit a bunch of the other stuff from the role playing. Zerpy says Scoundrel. All right, we'll do Scoundrel. You can see kind of exactly what I'm talking about here. Scoundrel. Boom. So changing one of these presets will just kind of adjust everything else according to the preset. That includes your standing stone ability. So this is much more classic character creation now as well, where instead of having to seek out a standing stone in the world, which is something I've never been personally a huge fond of, I think it's just a little bit, like, I kind of get what they were going for. I just enjoy it more when it's part of my character creation that I choose a standing stone ability. You can do that, and whatever preset you choose, you can go through and, you know, change everything else as well. However you want. It would be really nice if you could see the description of each standing stone, but unfortunately that is not yet available. Oh, it even says down there, choose your birth sign. Descriptions are not available at this time. The ritual is fine. We'll just leave it however it is. Race menu, you don't really want to select this. Be careful when using this. It can cause crashes with some mods. So basically this allows you to just hop into the race menu early, which as far as I know, there's really not any good reason to do that. So we're definitely not going to do that. Magic. So this will give you the option to give your character some spells right off the bat if you would like. So what you can do is you can make sure that you have no spells at all by hitting nothing. Obviously, leaving it random will randomize the options that it provides for you. Garrick says, it only made sense because you could change your standing stone. That is very true. The fact that the vanilla game allows you to go around and, you know, choose whatever standing stone you want as many times as you want does kind of lend some insight into why they made standing stones like a part of the world. But I think that now, because of Requiem and because you can't change it, it just makes more sense to pick one off the bat. Anyway, so you can go to spell schools if you want. So you go spell schools, primary school. You pick one. You don't even have to pick two. You can go illusion and then have another one be random or nothing. And so what this will do, let's say we did it like this. With Requiem, you can't change it or you can't go back to it. With Requiem, you can't change. So once you pick a standing stone ability in Requiem, it's permanent. That's your standing stone for the whole game. Which I think is cool. I agree with the idea of kind of selectively choosing a standing stone and just, you know, kind of being stuck with it, because I feel like it should be an unimportant choice. However, it does kind of remove the impetus to, like, go out and find it, like, in the world. I'd rather, like I said, just kind of have you pick it off the bat. Anyway, so if you want, you can do this by school. So what this would mean, let's try and say, like, okay, conjuration. So what this will do is give you a random kind of smattering, like a couple low-level spells from both illusion and conjuration. As you see here, choosing the same school twice unlocks stronger spells in that category. So if I were to choose illusion again, just like this, that would give me, I don't know exactly how high up it goes to. I think maybe like journeyman spells or whatever that center tier is. but that'll give you like a few spells that way. It's just another way to like customize your thing. Alternatively, you can go spell selection, which will allow you to like individually choose different spells. And in fact, we'll do that one just because I don't think I've done that yet, and we'll see exactly how it goes. Kalali says, so what mod did these options come from, or is it something that was written specific for US? It came from Skyrim Unbound, Kalali. Is very, very nice because, like I said, the author has made the entire mod just totally open permission, so we can, you know, edit it and just directly integrate it so people don't need to download anything, they don't need to configure anything. Everything is kind of self-contained in the Ultimate Skyrim files, which is really, really nice. And of course, we give credit to the author because you got to do that. Because he made it, and we wouldn't have it if it weren't for him or her. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. Anyway, this is a really cool section too. Dragons and shouts. So this is let's see. Blood Ice's Vanilla Requiem lets you change as long as it's the same type of stone, warrior, magic, thief, and serpent categories, unless that was changed. I think you might be right, Blood Eye, and I actually have not thought about that for a while. Or actually, I can't remember if that's true or not. It's been so long since I even tried to change it. I just kind of assumed off the bat that they were the same. But you might be right that if the different stones are within the either the warrior or the mage or the thief purview, maybe you can change them. Oh, it's BTC that locks you out. Okay. That makes more sense to me because for a long time I was using Behind the Curtain too. Not anymore, unfortunately. Behind the Curtain has been officially removed from the installation, but, you know, Zero Morph, we appreciate your contributions. Zerpy says, you went with Skyrim Unbound for more customization rather than live another life. That is exactly correct, Zerpy. What were we looking at here? So Dragons and Shouts. This is really cool. I actually love this little section. It basically allows you to determine where dragons show up. So timed delay. Let's see, dragons when enabled can either spawn only at word walls or also at random times during the game. Delays will prevent them from initially spawning until a certain number of in-game days have passed or the player has reached a specific level. Timed delays spawn word wall dragons first and eventually enable random spawns. See the special options menu to adjust the delay settings. So you can go here. We can do time delay or level delay so that the dragons will not appear until you are a certain level. You can disable dragons entirely so your game is, you know, there's no more dragons like at all. A lot of people find dragons to be kind of a weird difficulty spike in Requiem or just, I don't know, if for whatever reason you want to turn off dragons or have them restricted to, you know, only spawning after a certain point, you can do that, which is really fun. I believe enable just kind of leaves them exactly as they always were. And you got walls only timed, and levels. So lots of different options there. I believe enabling them kind of just sends them right off the bat. They'll just start spawning. Dragon Souls. Choose whether or not your character can absorb dragon souls or is non-dragonborn. So here you actually have the option to not be a dragonborn character, which I know is a very popular roleplay option for a lot of characters. It's something that I personally think is really cool. Especially with Requiem's emphasis on role-playing and with Ultimate Skyrim's emphasis on role-playing. There's more stuff than ever that you can do in the game that has absolutely nothing to do with the quest lines or the main quest. So if you want to play the game just as like a pure fantasy life simulator, which is kind of how Ultimate Skyrim is geared, it's kind of like this marriage of Daggerfall and Morrowind in that way. You can play the entire game with no dragons, where your character is not dragonborn, and none of that functionality will be in the game at all, and it's not something you ever have to worry about. You can even, right here, if checked, non-dragonborn characters will learn and automatically unlock shouts from word walls. So if you even like the idea of shouting, you can still use shouts and like have that be a part of your character, and you still don't have to deal with the dragonborn stuff. Or you don't even have to technically make your character dragonborn. Maybe you roleplay it as like you're a student of the voice, you know, there's whatever you want to do, you can kind of mess with. Serpy says, did you also add more quest lines in 4.0? No, not really. There are plans. I have plans to implement more content in general. 4.0, I'd say on the whole, is mostly about locking in most of the baseline mechanics and kind of the gameplay mechanics of the entire experience, and then once we have that in place, then we can start adding on additional content if it fits. The problem with quest lines and content mods is that a lot of the time they're very hard to make from the perspective of like a modder. Making a convincing or engaging quest line requires a lot of stuff. You have to be able to build out areas. You usually need voice actors. You need to write good stuff. There's so many different directions that it has to kind of really be solid from. And my whole thing about Ultimate Skyrim is that whenever possible, I like for the entire experience to feel contiguous. I've said this a million times before, but I really focus on having every bit of the content feel like it could have been and should have been a natural part of the vanilla experience off the bat. And so when it comes to quest lines and quest mods, it can be really hard to hit that quality threshold because it's really, really tough to make quest mods. However, I evaluate everything, or try to anyway, so there are quest mods that people really seem to like, things like Beyond Skyrim Bruma, or like what's the Dark Souls one, Dark End, things like that I have plans in the future to look at and just see either whether or not they'd be a good fit or if they can be made to be a good fit for Ultimate Skyrim. Hold on. Garrick says people will react differently. If you're talking about the Dragonborn stuff, I do believe that if you are not Dragonborn, then people will not reference you being the Dragonborn. There will be no more references to you being the Dragonborn, and the main quest will be effectively locked off, because I believe in Skyrim Unbound that the main quest actually starts. I believe Bleak Falls Barrow is not even a quest anymore. Farengar will never ask you to get the tablet or anything like that. Just the main quest starts whenever you organically manage to kill a dragon, and that's when your character discovers that he or she is Dragonborn. Let's see here. Drathmar says, so there are plans to add in or add back some of the increased content stuff after 4.0 is released. There are plans to evaluate other new content mods and quest mods, but any of the stuff that's been removed, I'm thinking like Falskar here, and what was the other one? Lost Wonders of Mazark. Those things are never coming back. I can pretty safely say the reason that they were removed is because they didn't meet that quality threshold that I was talking about before, and because it would be impossible or way too much work to make them kind of meet that threshold, which, to be clear, is not to say that they are bad mods by any means, or especially in the case of like Falskar, right? Like Falskar is a really amazing thing in and of itself. It's a, if you guys don't know the history of it, it was one dude's kind of working resume to show all the different things that he was capable of in kind of like a game design sphere, which is really cool. Don't get me wrong, I think that's awesome, and I love the way that modding and the modding communities can kind of act as a stepping stone for people to reach different points in their career trajectories. But the mod itself, if you've ever played it, let's just say that it is very clearly like a separate modded story and content. There's areas in which you are it's very, I'm like, okay, this is a mod, and it's like totally separate from the main game. I love it conceptually, but I just don't think it's a good fit for the installation. And then same thing like with Lost Wonders of Mazark. What else we got? Zerby says Minor Arcana still in. I missed that one. Yes, it is, at least selectively. There's many parts of Minor Arcana that are not in 4.0 of Ultimate Skyrim. That includes the changes to Forsworn in particular. Forsworn are a little bit less crazy overpowered, which is my opinion on what they are in Minor Arcana by default. However, there's a lot of stuff from Minor Arcana that is included, like the alternate healing poultice recipes, the changes and improvements to Civil War actors so that the Stormcloaks and the Imperials are not quite so pushovery, because they are in the vanilla game. In Vanilla Requiem, the Civil War actors are just super squishy, and they're very easy to kill for both you and for themselves. So they're a lot buffer. They're, proper soldiers in Minor Arcana, so that's definitely still in there. Hey, Novo, how you doing, man? Novo is a member of the Ultimate Skyrim team, in case anyone does not know that. Chilio says, I loved your Requiem series. It's so cool how you're still working on it. Thank you very much, my friend. It is a labor of love for me. And just, I don't know. I mean, for one, it's easily the most popular stuff on my channel and everything like that. But it's something I really enjoy doing. I think that just modding allows you this tremendous opportunity to take an experience like Skyrim, which as a baseline, has its problems, but has a lot of wonderful things about it, and you can kind of just transform it into whatever you want it to be. So I am still doing that. Mac Mora says, any chance of Cranthir Tower being added to US? Is that one of the housing mods, Mac Mora? If so, I'd say maybe. What I like, instead of kind of specific housing mods, we'll call it, because if I open up that floodgate, God, there's so many different ones that you could look at. I like having the housing in game kind of operate through the systems that we've already implemented. The vanilla houses are kind of a separate thing. So like vanilla and Hearthfire kind of exist, and we support them much more highly in Ultimate Skyrim by augmenting the houses themselves, making them have greater utility, making them just a little bit cooler than they are in the base game. That includes Hearthfire. Otherwise, there is a whole system in place for building your own houses and building your own furniture and crafting stuff and just all kinds of stuff that you can build for your own stuff. So rather than adding in new proprietary house mods, that's kind of what I would like to emphasize. But you never know. I mean, if there's one that's really, really, great, it's a maybe. Big crafting mage tower hidden at first, unlock more by purchasing sections. So the fact that it includes those kind of mechanics makes it more likely, I would say, because it's balanced. I know that a lot of housing mods just kind of, it's like you find a corpse and it's got a deed and it says you unlocked, whatever manor, and then suddenly you have like this massive, fully stocked mansion. Tricky Dragon says, was watching a vanilla playthrough and it was so this is best and broken. Really makes me appreciate all the work and you and other modders do to make Skyrim so special. Thank you very much, Tricky Dragon, and I totally get where you're coming from. I was talking to a friend yesterday about just the vanilla Skyrim experience. It's just, I don't know. I think that the best games, or at least my favorite games over the entirety of my gaming career, so to speak, are the games that feel like they reward you the more you play it. Games with true depth that are very carefully designed, where the more you play the game, the more you realize how much care and attention to detail was poured into the design and the balance, and the better you feel for having put that time in, because there's, like a solidly built experience curve, where, like, a good example of this would be, like, there's a very different type of game. Take like Binding of Isaac, which is like one of my favorite games of the past like 10 years or so, or like the Dark Souls series. These are games that have so much depth. It's presented to you in a fairly digestible way. Like when you first start off, you're just kind of like, let's take Dark Souls, for example. You're just a dude with, weapons and armor. There's things to kill, and you just kind of go through it. And it's very easily accessible. You can just dive in and already start having a good time. But the more you play, the more stuff you unlock, the more options become available to you. And when you really dig in and you start to kind of research all the different mechanics that exist within the game and all the different ways that you can build your character, it just gets more and more rewarding the more you play it. That's the kind of thing that I feel like is a hallmark of a really wonderful game. And with Skyrim, I'm pretty comfortable saying that gameplay design is where it really falls short. There are other areas in which it does things well, you could say. I say that the world design is really cool. One thing I love about Skyrim is the art style. I love the variance between the different regions. I think that Bethesda has some of the best world artists, and there's a lot of time and effort poured into a lot of different parts of Skyrim, but the gameplay itself, to me, is very shallow. I'm definitely not the first person to make that observation, but it's like, what's the expression you always see when it comes to Skyrim is that it's wide as an ocean, but shallow as a puddle. And I think that's a very apt description. It's the kind of game where the more you play and the more you peel back that curtain and see how the mechanics actually function behind the scenes, the less fun you have, the more you realize that nothing really matters and that the entire experience is relatively homogenized. There really isn't that much of a difference between one playthrough to the next because every character fundamentally boils down to the same stuff or can do the same stuff. It's just it's a very homogeneous experience, and I think that it's designed with accessibility in mind and is, let's just say, it's not the kind of gameplay design or experience that appeals to me personally, and I am grateful for the opportunity to switch things up, and I'm very grateful for the wealth of amazing work put into this game by the modding community. It's the reason people still play it. Otherwise, who would play Ultimate Skyrim for any longer than like 60 hours? Danila says, Garrick, long story short, cool ideas, but game too easy. I mean, really, that's a good summary. Danila says, today I've watched Balian's stream where you got a house in Windhelm for 25,000 gold. It feels like this house, especially being improved to be TNF mod, seems like it's too cool for its price. I'd easily consider increasing its price to 50 or even 100k gold. Oh, funny you mentioned that. Although, actually, I think he is running the beta. 25,000 might be the higher. I can make it that. Really, the gold balance and the gold sinks is something I'm still messing with. Bloodeye brought up a really interesting and really solid point, I think, in one of his feedback comments on Ultimate Skyrim subreddit, that so gold is like a really interesting thing to balance, right? Because I think Ultimate Skyrim does a really good job of giving you interesting things to spend your money on. Some of them could even be more expensive, even though the vast majority of gold sinks have been increased in value in the beta and for 4.0, so stuff is even more expensive. And there are still some areas where your ability to make money needs to be tweaked a little bit. That includes the new carry weight mechanics, and also like alchemy, the value of player crafted potions will be significantly reduced so that you can't just, print gold essentially. But Bloodeye brought up this really good point that a lot of stuff that is a gold sink in the game is relatively optional. It's stuff like player houses or horses and stuff that you really don't have to purchase. I have plans to increase the cost of gold for many things in the game that are essentially required. Things like carriage traveling is going to be much more expensive. Things like in cost will be probably a little bit higher, but really I think the main thing there is going to be reducing the player's ability to make excessive amounts of money by reducing their carry weight and by encouraging players to carefully evaluate how they manage their resources, like what they can carry. Yeah, there's Bloodeye. There he is. Siam, nice to see you. See, Danila says, just sharing thoughts. I'll probably change prices for houses in TS5 edit. That is also true that if those are prices that you would like to change in some way and you know what's up, it's very easy to change that stuff behind the scene. It's like single values that you can just go in and adjust. Anyway, back to what we were doing here before I was sidetracked. So it looks like this entire stream pretty much is going to be Q&A. I guess the one tomorrow, we'll make that one into a bona fide gameplay stream. So if you got any other questions for me, I got about 15 minutes here, so feel free to pitch them. Sam, nice to see you too. I think this is the first time I caught your stream. Well, welcome, my friend. Bloodeye said, also tried around with fishing. Nothing to conclude yet. There's some pricey fish in there too, although it's not an actual crafting skill. There's also, so I think you said this in one of your comments, Blood, is it would be nice to see some sort of progression system incorporated into like cooking and kind of tertiary skills like that. And that is something that actually the development team and I discussed a long time ago, something that I would really like to do in the future. Once again, it comes down to implementation and how much time it would take. But rest assured that all of these ideas and like even the stuff about like carriage, gold cost adjustment, those are all already in like the list of development tasks. There is, I can't show it to anyone. It's kind of like the secret sauce behind everything. But there is so much stuff that I would like to do to improve the experience of Skyrim and Ultimate Skyrim even more, stuff that I'm really excited to look into after 4.0. I think that there is, I mean, you know, eventually there will be other projects. I even have some ideas for some other projects that are not Skyrim related that I think will be a fun use of my time as well. But I think that there's still so much potential to make Ultimate Skyrim even more into the type of gameplay experience that you really can't get with any other game out there at all, like in any way. And that's very exciting to me because I don't know, there's so much talent in the modding community. There's so many amazing mechanics and things to do that are being output still today. Let's just say that there's a ton of potential still remaining, and I'm excited to continue developing the project. Danila says, also, I saw in the same stream that making gold ingots out of gold is easily exploitable. You can sell it for more gold than you spend to make a gold bar. That is because of a duplicate recipe from one of the mods. I can't remember which, but that's since been taken care of, Danila. You don't got to worry about that. Have you thought, was it Macmora? I always feel that everything is too expensive. Like meat is 30 septims or more. How do they keep such small money pouches then? I think you could, what's it called? You could look at that. I mean, first, meat is expensive, relatively speaking. Also, when you consider that game is like an owned commodity, I'm pretty okay with the prices of food as it is. I'd say that what I would like to do at the very least is up the like maybe basic food items like a cooked meat or like a cooked rabbit or like a bread. Those things could be made a little cheaper, but they're really fine as is. What I would like to do is make the like kind of complicated recipes worth more. So there are several recipes for food in the game that have been edited by Requiem and been edited by Unmakes, who does the rebalances and the patches for like Cryptoper's mods. So that there's a lot of recipes, food recipes in the game that do really awesome stuff that are very valuable for the buffs that they add to your character. This has always been the case for stuff like the stews. There's even more now, especially like the Hearthfire recipes that are really, really valuable. And because of the adjustments to the recipes themselves, they can be pretty tough to make and tough to get all the ingredients for. So I would like to increase the value of those, not only to make it a little bit harder for people to just purchase them outright, but also to allow players to make money off of those so that cooking can kind of be like a tertiary skill that you make money off of. Garrick says, I heard on multiple streams that you might have gone a little too far on training prices. I've heard similarly, Garrick. I'm not entirely convinced yet because I consider training to be a kind of like last resort gold sink. I think that a lot of players just crank right through the early game using because it's still fairly easy to make a lot of gold. And so they'll just go and train up a bunch of skills really fast. It's one of those things that I think if players maybe adjust their mindset a little bit and like regard training as a last resort or as a, the final gold sink, if you will, where if you really just have like an overabundance of gold, you can use it to gain a couple skill ups. Because there's so many other ways to skill up now and so many other ways to spend your time that I think are more engaging than I think that the default training system where you just like, here's gold, now I have a skill, I think it's super boring as far as stuff goes. But it's a gold sink, so that's the only reason it's still in the game. In any case, I'll keep it in mind, but I'm not guaranteeing that will change. Maybe it could be tweaked down just a little bit. Let's see here. Modded games are the best experience for users due to their customization. Skyrim, Minecraft are the best games on the market right now. I would say that the customization is really, really cool. Tricky Dragon, I would say that the other reason I really love mods and I get what you mean with the customization. It really allows players to just make their game into whatever they want it to be. I guess summarily that is also why I like it. To me, it's crazy that it's still kind of the same point, but I think about Ultimate Skyrim, and it's like this, like if you look at the experience as one cohesive whole, it's kind of like all of these modders are co-developing this experience on like their users' PCs. The users, mash them all together. And it's kind of like it's like a big old development team where each member of the development team doesn't know exactly who they're working with, but they are all contributing to all these experiences. It's very unique. Excuse me, and wonderful thing. Blood Eye says, it's kind of that it lives and breathes with the combination of all these small tweaks, and there's always new ideas, tweaks, and bugs showing up, and the time needed to address each adds up quickly. Oh, yeah, you're telling me. I remember the reason that 4.0, the gap between 3.4 and 4.0 has been so large is because for a while I was kind of shifting focus away. I got kind of burnt out after Season 1, to be honest, just because I was doing so much Skyrim stuff all the time, and there were stuff that I wanted to do with my content, in addition, stuff like scripted videos, things that I actually would really like to get back into as well. I just got kind of burnt out on Skyrim, and I took a break for a while and was thinking that I was going to kind of focus on other things, and I did that, and I was grateful for doing that. I was grateful for the experience, but quickly I found that one, the Skyrim stuff was easily like the stuff that was most popular, and if I was going to have a shot at making any of this into a bona fide revenue stream that I could use, you know, to live and to continue doing this stuff, Ultimate Skyrim was probably going to be the way towards it. And also, when I kind of stopped to really consider what the experience could be, kind of what we were just talking about, I started to get real excited because, like I said a moment ago, there really is so much potential to create an experience here that is unlike anything else out there, specifically because of those little tweaks and stuff that you mentioned. It's like, you know, any world building author will tell you that it's the little details, right, that make it, and it's those little details that are really hard to do on your own. But if you have like a big curated experience like this, because it takes so much time to get all those details right, and like you said, it adds up so quickly. I don't know, it can just make this really, really wonderful thing. And when I thought about that, and I thought about how much more could be done to make something really, really special, it got me excited again. But by that point, it just had already the stuff, the amount to do. I'm gonna alt tab here because I'm missing stuff in chat. Look, you can see Mod Organizer Classic. I'm gonna scroll back up here. The amount of things to do had already accumulated so much. And that was when I kind of had to adjust my thinking, where I was like, all right, if we're making a bona fide college try at this Ultimate Skyrim thing, here's what 4.0 could look like. Basically what I'm saying is that after 4.0 releases, you guys can expect much more frequent, more incremental updates, things that are not just like, let's take a whole fucking year between one version to the next. That will not be how things go from then on. Positive and generous. Okay, hold on a second. I actually got real sidetracked here. So we got a few minutes left. I'm actually gonna just let it go over for a little bit because it's really nice talking to you guys about all this stuff, and I think that this stream is gonna be, like I said before, a lot more of a Q&A, and then we'll let tomorrow's stream be like the full-on gameplay. Let's see here. Real Dom Marino, on the downloading mods page of your website, is the order of the mods how the load order should be. Yeah, well, so the downloading mods page has all the mods listed in the download or the mod order, so you should be downloading and installing them in order. But the load order is specifically your plugin order, and that can be sorted automatically. But you do want to download and install the mod order exactly as it's listed on that page. Kalali says, the important question is, did you fix the small unreadable text size of the skooma description? I think we did. I changed something was like that, and I changed it. Maybe it was the healing poultice, but if not, I'll have to go in there. The reason that happens, if you guys are curious, is not usually the descriptions for a single effect will be relatively small, but you'll have an item that has multiple magic effects on it, and all of the effect descriptions will be jammed into the same text box, and it can be really, really tiny. Drathmar says, I personally think the early levels are too much. We're talking about training costs here. It's over 1,000 gold under level 10, especially for harder skills to naturally level, like the armor skills. Really, 1,000 gold is not that much. Like I said, maybe there's room to tweak it a little bit. Positive and generous. Hello. Hey, Belmont, looking forward to US 4.0. Question, how much of a graphics boost does US represent from vanilla Skyrim, and will those of us with a laptop containing a 1060 have to skip some of the mods / ENBs? I think, well, your processor matters a lot for Legendary Skyrim, positive and generous, but, well, for one, to answer your first question, I would say that the graphics in Ultimate Skyrim versus vanilla Skyrim, there's a significant difference. I would say that Ultimate Skyrim is definitely not the limit of like where you can push Skyrim graphically, specifically because I still want it to be accessible for people who have less, than super beefy PCs. If you have a 1060, I'm guessing a laptop that has a 1060 probably also has a pretty decent processor. So with that, I would say you can probably knock out all of the optionals. You're not going to get solid 60 FPS everywhere, but I don't even get that. I have a 1080 with a 4790K. That's just not how Legendary Skyrim is geared. But you should be fine, I would say. And if you want, you can always skip some optionals and then add them in later. That's no problem. And it should be easier than ever to do that with the auto installer functionality. Blood-Eye, lack of training does show late game. I've had Illusion 60-ish, one-handed, and Marksman around 40, and that at level 36. Now that's an interesting point, Blood-Eye, because slowing the late game is kind of like a tertiary consequence of that. That was where I tested it a lot. It was actually to see, like, all right, if I'm level 50 and I'm trying to level up my illusion skill from 75 to 76, how much gold is that taking me? It's somewhere in the ballpark of like 30,000, something like that. I think that's pretty appropriate, because that's the point. Like when you're in the late game, chances are your money making abilities are just like out the wazoo, so it feels fair to me. Macmora, hey BB, have you ever thought about living takes time? It's a time sink in the game, but it makes you need to prepare before you go dungeoneering. It also makes time go faster between holidays. So I didn't know about that functionality, but I have thought about living takes time. It's on my short list. It's one of those things where I need to kind of see how it would work with all the rest of the stuff in game. I haven't really decided how big of a fan I am of things that take like Hunterborn's functionality, right, where you go to skin like a deer or whatever, and it takes you like 2 hours and it just kind of does it and doesn't warn you. I'm fine with that for like the Iron Dusk mods, like Train and Study, or that's still Train and Study, or just like when you're training on a dummy or with a skill book, because it asks you, it's like, how many hours would you like to spend doing this, and you have the option to choose. I like that. The idea of having certain actions just take time automatically and not having that be clear to the player is a little bit trickier, but I don't know. If everything, one of my main design philosophies for Ultimate Skyrim is consistency. I like when players can understand like how something works, and how just like when something works a certain way, you can expect it to work that way across the entire game. That's like one of my main things that I prioritize. So if I can find a way to make it feel natural and to span it across many different activities in the game in a way that feels natural and enjoyable, then maybe. Danila Pitt, I definitely like new training prices. For me, training should be that expensive. It makes the game more fun and it feels realistic. Maybe decreasing by 25 to 30% would be fine. We'll see. I'll definitely do some playtesting with that. That's the kind of thing where really it takes playtesting, and that's why I rely on you guys to kind of play the game and give me your experiences. I would say that I haven't really encountered anyone so far who's like, yeah, training costs exactly as much as it should be. And obviously when you're designing anything, you have to lean on your own intuition somewhat, but if you have universal feedback saying this is a little bit too much, it's worth considering that it might be a little bit too much. Blood-Eye, high training prices is nice indeed. You really got to dedicate / focus on skills you want to level and keep up. That was my intent with the whole thing. Right, I will say that I really adjusted like really far in the other direction, to where I think the factor on training, the training cost now is like 15 to 1, whereas in regular Skyrim it's 10. That global is set to 10. In vanilla Requiem, I think it's 1. So if that's true, it's either 1 or 5 or something really tiny like that. So if that is the case, you could say that, I mean, factually, in Ultimate Skyrim, the increased or gold training cost is increased by a factor of like 15. So that might be a little bit of an overcorrection. We'll see. Drathmar, I agree for the mid and later levels, but I don't feel like someone showing you the very, very basics of something should be as expensive as it is. In my mind, training costs should be more exponential, but not sure if that's even possible. So to answer that question, it's not possible when the cost of training is being handled by the vanilla mechanics. Training cost, as far as I know, is something that is hardwired into the engine, and as it is in vanilla, is determined by one single global, and that is like F training molt cost or something like that. So there is no easy way. It's purely a linear curve. It's not an exponential curve. That's something I checked on myself, because it makes sense that, you know, in the beginning, or if it's not linear, it might not be exactly linear, but it's a lot more linear than it is exponential. And I'm fairly sure it's linear. It does make sense for early on training to be a little cheaper, and for things to get way more expensive as you go on, maybe to an exponential extent. However, even there, it still kind of creates the problem where if it's too easy to just crank through the early game with training cost, or just by paying for training, that's just, if it's very clearly the most efficient way, that's what players are going to do, because players, I think it's kind of unfair to count on players to curate their own experience, especially when they don't really know what's going on. And if you do that, I think you're going to end up with a lot of players who just recognize the training as the most efficient way to level up their guy, and then they'll do that, and it won't feel satisfying. I think that's a very real problem, so it's something you got to be careful about. Let's see. So anyway, to finish that thought off before I move on, there are mods that try to adjust the way that training costs are calculated, and they kind of try to implement new systems for handling that. There are a couple of them on my list for evaluation, but we just have to wait and see. It is something that is important to me, though, because it's a very big part of balance. Garrick says there are multiple mods in the list for the beta, for which I can't find the exact version number you are mentioning. Is more recent okay? I don't know exactly which ones you're referring to, Garrick, but I mean, if the other versions are not available, then I suppose that you go more recent. Typically speaking, you want to try and find the version number that is the closest that you can get to the one listed. So hopefully that answers it. Dr. L says, when does 4.0 come out? Basically, as soon as it's ready, Dr. L, and as soon as I have a better time frame for you, you guys will know. See, positive and generous. Thanks for the answer. No problem, man. Blood Eye, sell my Dawnbreaker for 3 illusion levels. JK. Yeah, the some of the Daedric stuff, it's like maybe you could adjust the prices. You're always going to run into like a functional limit whereby just there's no one in the game that has enough gold to pay what they're actually worth. Except I do have, I don't want to say too much about this because I feel like it's kind of a spoiler, a secret plan. Let's just say that maybe if you are a really high level, maybe at some point in the near future, there will be a mechanic for you to sell very expensive things for a lot more than you can sell them for at most places. We'll just say that. Don Marino, OMG, this whole time spent downloading these mods and I'm only halfway down the page. Dude, I'm surprised you managed to get halfway down the page that quickly. I feel like it takes most people way longer than that. Drathmar, I know like FNIS is a big one, that there's only a newer version available. Yeah, it does kind of seem that way. 4 is a tumultuous individual, we'll say. He seems to just add and remove versions on a whim. I don't know about that one. We'll just have to use whatever's there and hopefully it works. Dom Marino, Amidium, Reborn's files like Farmhouse, Stonewall Texture, and Imperial Forts are all hidden by the author. In those cases, Dom Marino, you can try and find them, you know, by Googling them. Unfortunately, that's not something I can't like provide them to you because it violates permissions, but it, you know, maybe someone else can in somewhere that's not affiliated with my project or myself in any way. Dan Lapid, Immersive College, as far as I remember, has been updated. It's been updated to 5.2 now. I think in the beta it's still at 5.0, but those updates are very small and they'll be coming in update 5 or beta 5. Garrick says College of Winterhold comes. Yeah, it's 5.2. Maybe some other mods too. Okay, so that's chat. I'm gonna have to go like ASAP here, but at the very least we'll get through this last MCM menu and then jump into the game so that technically there is some gameplay in this gameplay stream. Anyway, what were we looking at here? Starting gear, common clothes, hooded, random weapon. Why don't we like actually make an attempt here? It's fine, just wanted to give you a heads up in case you were downloading. Appreciate it, Don Marino. All right. Character name, adventurer. That's fine. We'll change that later. Presets. I am going to go with... What kind of character do I want to make for this? I think I'm going to go with a... I did Paladin on Hjulfrid. Assassin. Let's make an assassin. The Serpent. That's okay. Spells. Let's give him something from schools. Let's try... I'm going to go Alteration, actually. And then secondary school, nothing. And dragons, let's go time delay, that's fine. Dragon souls, I am definitely dragonborn, and no, we won't need that. Outfit, let's say random light armor would be good. Headgear, hooded, that's fine. Weapons, dagger only. Wealth, let's say random is fine. Spell selection, oh, that's where the spell selection is. Okay. I'm gonna go spell selection. Oh, whoops. Here, spell selection. And let's go oak flesh and candlelight. How about that? Oops. Starting location. I am gonna put myself in... Actually, let's leave this random. What do you guys think? And we'll just kind of fucking deal with it. Special options, equip gear first, rags, faction armor, blah, blah, blah. Alright, and no supernatural options for this one. Drathmar, sorry if I was talking too much. I love talking about US because coming back to Skyrim, it's just made me love it again, and I find it awesome how engaged you are with the community, which makes me want to talk. Dude, don't worry about it. That's what this is for. Like I said in the dev update, this is a Q&A, beta gameplay, whatever the hell we want it to be. So I wouldn't answer if I didn't want to. You can trust that's the truth. Begin your adventure. All right, boys and girls. So I'm sorry I'm going to have to end the stream right after this because I have some other stuff that I got to do today. But at least, like I said, we'll have technically some gameplay in here. We'll make our character, and then we will end the stream. So that way it doesn't just spring out at you guys. Thank you all for joining me in the stream. It's a lot of fun. As you can imagine, I absolutely love talking about this stuff as well. As all of the people in my life can unfortunately attest to, I'm sure. But, you know, I spend a lot of my time every week working on this stuff, and I work on it out of love and because I enjoy it. And so it's really fun for me to talk about as well, especially when I get to really dig into the nitty-gritty details with all of you because you guys are actual players of this game. So, you know, while my friends and family are nice enough to humor me as I talk about this stuff, they don't have the first-hand experience with exactly what I'm talking about, so it's very fun for me to do this as well. Severay, thank you very much for the subscription. Amazing gameplay so far, I know, right? Tricky Dragon. Tricky Dragon is around for most of my streams, I would say, which have not been Skyrim, but they have at least featured gameplay. So there's that. You should be able to catch most of them on YouTube. I have a couple still waiting in the wings. Anyway, what kind of man am I going to make here? What kind of assassin should we... How about a red guard? I could go with some one-handed, and I'm probably going to give him a bow. And maybe some dagger skills as well. What did I just get? Okay. Let's make a red guard, and let's give him, let's check what presets we got here. There's some cool looking, this guy, I believe this is actually the preset that I used for Atom, the very first character, technically. BB needs to get good. He can't Q&A plus kill bandits at the same time. I really can't. This has been a difficult thing. I'm getting better, but like I've been playing other games like Dark Souls 3 on the stream, right? Or like Gungeon. It's very difficult for me still to oh my god, to play a game well and also participate in the chat and everything. I need to ask Bailey and how he manages to do that because I mean, I'm sure it's an acquired skill like anything else, but goddamn, it is not easy for me to do. I think I'm just very easily distracted in general. This guy kind of looks like a Nord, doesn't he? Just like a Nord with dark skin. This guy's pretty cool looking. Alright, let's go him. Change the skin tone a little bit darker. Like there. Oh, sweet Bob the Barbarian. Oh, sweet, randomly checked your channel after watching last week's Critical Role, and you're on. What up, BB? How you doing, Bob? I hate to break it to you, but this stream is about to be over. But thanks for stopping by, and I will be here tomorrow at 5 p.m. Actually playing the game instead of sitting around in the MCM the entire time. Speaking of Autumn, I'm not sure if you answered this, but are you going to do more US gameplay once 4.0 is out? Yes, I will be, Drathmar. I will be doing a full Season 2 once 4.0 is out, which is something that I'm greatly looking forward to because, as I've said before, I don't get to play that often. Most of my time is spent in development, and I play insofar as I need to play test, and when there's something that needs to be tested in-game, and the only way I can get it is actual playing experience, but that's few and far between. Triggy Dragon says, will all characters need to hunt, or is there options available to circumvent hunting in general? There's absolutely options to circumvent hunting. Tricky Dragon, it depends on exactly what part you're talking about, but hunting affords you experience, you know, in like marksman experience, and there's a million different ways to get marksman experience. You can pay for it, you can shoot other things, you can train at dummies, whatever you want to do. Hunting gets you food. Same thing, there's a million different ways to acquire food, because really all you need is, you don't need meat, it just comes with certain benefits. But you can always pay for food, you can always, you know, get it, buy it through loot and stuff like that. Hunting will get you pelts and things of that nature. But, you know, you can buy any of the materials that you can hunt at like a blacksmith or wherever you would need to if you're going to use it for crafting. And hunting also gets you money, because you can sell all the stuff that you find, right? But as we know, there are a million different ways to make money in US. So really, if you don't want to hunt, anything that hunting gets you, you can get in other ways. The one exception might be certain hunter-born recipes, which I've not decided if I'm going to make all of those available to characters otherwise, or if I'm going to keep them kind of tied into the hunting mechanics. We'll see about that one, because I think it would be kind of fun if at least some of those recipes that are very like hunter character oriented remained tied into the hunter-born progression system. Drathmar says, that's awesome. I am at about 67 in Season 1, and it's awesome seeing some of the ideas and everything. Well, I'm happy you're enjoying yourself, my friend. Alright, let's get rid of this crappy beard, because that one, I mean, I'm fine with pretty much everything else, I'd say. But that beard is stupid, so I'm going to change that. Mouth, hair, facial hair, probably the color as well. Maybe we'll give him some kind of beard, but, oops, let's go. Now that looks, this is, whoops, how do I keep going down a hair color? Ugh. He's blonde. These what high resolution beards they are, of course. But, I don't know. Almost not feeling a beard on this guy. Maybe we'll just make him clean shaven. I like a goatee. That one looks pretty good. What do you guys think of that? Let's give him a hair color. Let's make it like a darker. There we go. Maybe like a little bit more brown. Alright, here's our man. And his mouth is a little weird. And that's what I'm going to change. Mouth. Let's give him like a... That one's pretty good. That one's a little weird. I think I'm just going to go with this guy. There he is. Here's our man. And now, what do we call him? We will call him... Alright, you guys name him. What's his name? Who's got a good name? Throw it in the chat real fast, and then we'll see where we land, and then that'll be the stream. I gotta eat breakfast, dude. I'm so hungry. Trathmar says, I think the Scrimshaw stuff definitely fits in with a hunter and would keep it tied in with Hunterborn from experience. That whole mod is why I want to make a hunter who lives out the land once I get bored with my current Hunterborn stuff. There are a lot of Hunterborn things that make sense to me you'd be able to craft with not necessarily the Hunterborn progression, but I do agree that at least some of those should be still tied to the Hunterborn progression, like a lot of the super Scrimshaw type stuff. Okay, we got Zeltier, we got Blarg. Here's what I'm gonna do. However many options I get, we got Kenneth. I'm gonna go random number generator, and each one's gonna be tied. Go random number generator. All right, why don't we make it between those three, between Zeltier, Blarg, and Kenneth? I'm going to go minimum 1 and maximum 3. Oh, wow. Google has its own. All right. Moment of truth. Here you guys can see, too. You see it on the phone? Maybe you can't see it. Generate. 3, 2, 1. Blam. 1. All right. It's Zeltier. There, man, I kind of... Tyranthraxis. Jesus. All right. Zeltier is his name. Thank you for participating in this wonderful activity of ours. Mage armor on self and candlelight. Oh, and I got an embroidered mage hood, too. All right. Let's see where we're starting off. And then it'll give us a lot to look forward to. Oh, my God. My adventure has begun. Holy shit, I started off in Helgen. Look at that. Before we get started, please choose a death system. Standard, please. Wow, that's pretty awesome. Oh, we're going to be cold here. Started Frostfall. Reflect on cold weather survival. Let's let it do its thing. And where is Requiem's pop-up? Is that going to happen? Uh-oh, that's a little weird. Normally the Requiem thing would have popped up by now. I wonder if doing spell research didn't mess with that a little bit. Well, in any case, we'll save a new one. And let me check the Requiem menu, because if it has not popped up... Yeah, Requiem scripts are not yet initialized. You can manually launch them by opening your inventory or magic menu. That's true. I've never seen them not launch before, but I will do that offhand. Look, the classic jump. Just like from the intro. Well, anyway, I think that this is where I'll call it, and I'll see what's up with the Requiem scripts in the meantime myself in between this stream and the next one. Oh, look, the Aurora's coming out. Very pretty. Anyway, make another save just in case, and thank you guys very much for joining me on this stream. It was really a lot of fun. For those of you watching after the fact, or anyone even watching right now who's hoping for slightly more gameplay, I apologize, but hopefully the... I would say wealth of information on Ultimate Skyrim 4.0 is something that is, you know, makes up for that in any case. And thank you guys very much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. So I will see you tomorrow. That will be at 5 p.m. PST from 5 to 7. And I will see you then. Goodbye.